Are we in the middle of a crypto correction, and how are the markets responding? This, of course, is going to be looking at a ton of assets, but also taking a look at some of the macro pressure that could guide the market. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. We're going to get into all of that today, really kind of look at where the market has and how the market has responded. Some of the assets out there, of course, have done a pretty good job in bouncing back off of what was one of the most difficult days that have ever happened in financial history. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. If you're looking at self-custody, this is one of the best places to check out. Go to tangem.com, and of course, you guys can get into your own self-custody wallet. And this is a physical card. It works in tandem with their app, which is a very slick app, very easy to sign up, 3-minute activation, very simple to use, also super secure. So make sure and check it out. Use the 3-card set. Just click Get Tangem, and of course, you can jump into that 3-card set and use our discount. You'll get that additional off right there. Let's go over to a couple of points right here. Who bought the dip on Monday? Many people looking at it. Was it retail? Was it the typical suspects out there in institutional? This is according to JP Morgan, that retail, $1 billion in net selling. God, I cannot believe people sold like this in this crazy. Granted, now security side I understand, but the crypto side not so much. 2.5 standard deviations below the 12-month average. Institutional comes in with 14 billion in net buying, which is 2.9 standard deviations above the 12-month average. So, I mean, this is old hat versus new hat, really what it boils down to. I want to go to a couple of clips here because we'll get into some more detail of what this means for the market in general. One is a clip here from Pomp. Have sellers lost their minds? Take a look.
Liz, I think that this is a classic dislocation between the fundamentals and the price action. Most of the crypto sellers have lost their minds, in my opinion. If you look at what was going on a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we were at peak euphoria. Bitcoin was at 70,000. Today, it's down in the low 50,000s. Nothing has changed. You continue to see Bitcoin be the strongest computer network in the world. It still has hundreds of millions of people who hold this. It's still, if not the best, debasement hedges available to us in finance. And so I think that this is a classic signal where you get this fear and panic that spreads throughout financial markets. People run to their accounts and they sell. But ultimately, looking at the fundamentals, nothing has changed. And so those with long-term thinking end up surviving and thriving much better than those with short-term thinking. So yes, a 25+% drawdown is big, but we used to see 30 and 40% drawdowns. And so actually these drawdowns have become more muted than they were in past cycles.
Now, I would agree with Pomp on a couple of things, and that is that the market does react pretty violently. I think the other thing is what was happening with the Bank of Japan and just Japan in general in terms of the carry trade. That put a lot of macro pressure, but in reality, he is right. These kind of market adjustments are pretty typical of what we've seen in crypto for quite some time. I don't think a lot of the people watching our channel, I hope, were really rattled by this much. If any, you may have been maybe instigated into going out and saying, all right, what's out there to go in and jump into, especially if you're looking for trades that maybe you had not get a chance to get into in the past. So there's a couple of things that could really start to catalyze or create a catalyst, I should say, around what would be the next big leg up, because there's two things factoring in right now is the pressure on Powell to move rates. Pompliano talks about what happens if that comes true. Take a look.
Pomp, Fed Fund futures are now all in, not just for a 25 basis point cut in September, not just a 50 basis point cut in September, but there is now a significant percentage odds that we will see a 75 basis point cut. Now, what do you make of that, and how would crypto react if the Fed were to swoop in?
I think all asset prices like cheap money. And obviously, the Fed, one thing that they have gotten right, although it hasn't been much, but one thing they have gotten right is they have a lot of ammunition now. So if we do head into a recessionary period, if we do start to continue to see a market drawdown, they have 5.5% rates where they can go and they can cut aggressively. And so I actually think that there's a chance they may do an emergency rate cut this week if we continue on the path that we're on. I don't think that it's likely, but there is a chance. And then that rate cut in September is going to continue to get deeper and deeper as the market goes down. And so the Fed has the room to do it. There's an argument that they over-rotated. They've stayed with higher rates for too long. And so now that they've got that ammunition, We saw in 2020, they've perfected the playbook to be able to cut rates and print money. And I think we're going to head back to that regime here coming into the end of the year.
Yeah, I think a couple points that you have to look at. If you look at the S&P, and it's a pretty good bounce off the 5144 mark, so it's trading around 5283. I think the key here, no emergency rate cut. I don't anticipate any kind of movement like that. Now, the question will be is, could you get a 50 basis points in September? Remember that the CPI, I believe, comes in September, or the next jobs comes in at September 8th, which is right before the FOMC, possibly seeing a potential change there. If jobs come in super soft, then maybe get a 50 basis points, because that would rattle the market again. I think that this is clearly what kind of catalyzed this around what was going on within Japan tying into this. Those carry trades do have an impact. But I think he is somewhat right in the sense that this will most likely get to a point where we'll see a lot of activity coming in to the market. Other things that are starting to move into the market, of course, is the Harris campaign's VP pick. There is no clear crypto platform for Tim Walz, who is now the VP running on the Democratic ticket. He's a stickler for regulation, so make of that. I think that's a problem in general. I think it's important whoever she picks for vice president understands the issues, hopefully can be a good in helping the bipartisan category. If we politicize Bitcoin and crypto in this industry, it's going to get to set everything back a few decades in Congress. I don't think it would go that far back, but I do believe it would slow things down. The key here right now is this is now a fairly left-leaning Democratic Party. The question is how much of this affects the moderate Democrat voter, and how many of those are tied into crypto? And I think this is going to be a factor that really starts to shift things right now. There's one thing I will show you guys, and that is just some of the political tracker sentiment that we're looking at. Harris has been climbing for quite some time, but I was looking at the data this morning. It was the first dip that she took. So this, of course, is interesting with Walz as the selection. So I'm just kind of curious if that had any bearing. So another thing to take a look at is Harris is recruiting the former crypto advisor for her campaign. Couple of points right here. Harris taps expert David Plouffe for the 2024 campaign. He served as a former advisor to Alchemy Pay, a crypto payment platform, and also an advisor on the campaign manager for Obama. So definitely some potential here. We'll see how that goes. We're probably going to do a video on this a little bit later, really what's the impact. Harris was scheduled to have a roundtable discussion with crypto leaders on Monday. That got delayed. Remember the little rug pull she did with Senator Warren, because Warren put out her statement. Of course, we all saw that. Now it's pushed into Thursday, looks like. So this could be a potential window for Harris to actually get in a position where because she has been repositioning on a lot of her policy. And if she repositions on crypto, this would really put her head to head with Senator Warren, which is kind of interesting because there's no love lost there with Senator Warren. So that may be the case overall with what's happening in the upcoming scenario. Other things is you've got going out there is there's a lot of FUD that will continue to, I think, flow into the market. This, of course, is talking about President Trump and raises financial stability concerns, and kind of interesting statements here. But the New York reports that Trump, who in 2019 dismissed Bitcoin, again, also changed his position, but he's a big advocate. And a couple of points, parallels to past financial crisis. Remember, they're drawing parallels to 2008. Not even a comparison. This just doesn't, first of all, the market isn't the same. The size of the market isn't the same. The kind of impacts that this would have on the greater market isn't the same. There's so many things that is just kind of fudding it out. Who warns of dangers of crypto crash were to occur in the event of crypto is fully integrated and interconnected with the banking system. Listen, this would take years, maybe a full decade, to really see real uptake by the banking system, and not to speak of the amount of regulation that would start to come in on that. So just more, the lack of the fake stream media having real knowledge around what's going on with crypto in general. So one thing that they do know is the influence. PACs have raised $170 million. I think this is most likely well underreported in terms of where the money is really coming from. Influx of money could also be used to influence policy decisions for favorable to the industry. I wonder how many industries do that right now in DC. Every industry? So it's an interesting one. Last statement here. Article reports that Trump's company had launched a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, they're reaching for straws here. This, of course, just gets into the whole scenario. And if you think about culture, and that's a very important thing in crypto, culture is super important. Why do you think you see Trump going in on, Aiden's podcast? I anticipate that we'll probably see Trump going in on even more of those fringe culture podcasts because he understands one thing, and that's how voters actually disseminate into the population and what they watch, what they view. I was just looking at some data on podcasts. I was surprised at the top 1,000 podcasts and the amount of audience that they control. And I think Trump might be onto something with that. So point being is that I think the New Yorker, along with other media organizations, are trying to figure out how to combat this. Other things I want to hit on is another clip here. This is talking a little bit more around Bitcoin and the elections, coming in from Michael Saylor. Take a look.
I think the events of Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville a few weeks ago were just very catalytic and marked an inflection point for Bitcoin. You had presidential candidates, you had governors, you had senators, you had House members, you had CEOs, you had billionaire investors in the audience. Senator Lummis presented a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill, and that's our Louisiana Purchase moment. What happened there was the Overton window shift. Now it's possible to discuss nation states holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And if nation states are going to buy it, then it's reasonable for institutions, corporations, and individuals to buy it as well. So that was tremendous. What you have is two constituencies. You've got traditional finance, and traditional finance operates 19% of the time. It costs $40 million to take a company public. There's no credit, there's no liquidity on the weekend. Bitcoin represents a different thing. It represents the 21st century. So I think the millennials are looking at the world today and they think electricity, water, elevators, the internet, they operate 100% of the time. Bitcoin operates 100% of the time. Why are we stuck with 20th century banks, money markets, and capital markets that shut us down at 4 p.m. on Friday, don't open up until 9:30 on Monday? If we did that to your food, your water, or your air, it would be considered cruel and unusual punishment.
All right, so Saylor, clearly Bitcoin bull here. And, he's done a lot of things, I think, right. But you look at, the overarching theme of crypto in general. I mean, he's also on record here saying no ETF for Ethereum. That, of course, has come to pass, along with other scenarios. Now, could this play into a real potential in terms of a Bitcoin strategic reserve? Sure, it could. We could see a big move in that direction. Will it happen soon? I still think this is some time out. And I think this is the curve, especially around these bell curves of adoption that take time. And then it does happen all at once. So he is correct about that. Things that you have to watch for, of course, is where is the truth going to be coming from? Right now, you got this Tim Wall's selection really upset the betting pool for Polymarket. This was not one that was really in the cards, and I think this was a bit of an outsider. So a very interesting selection. Still yet, I'm not completely sure what this is going to look like in terms of policy. I think that's the bigger thing going forward within that. Josh Shapiro is out. He was kind of the favorite right now, but no longer the case. And remember, the odds climbed yesterday, but only to about 30%. So Polymarket was clearly not on point with where this goes. So interesting theme going in for sure. Other things playing into the market right now is U.S. Ethereum ETF post second largest daily inflows on global markets, especially as they start to kind of shake up a little bit. And the fact that we see ETH ETFs seeing positive net inflow, pretty impressive in my opinion. But again, I think that gets back to the point where you have two different kind of investors. You have the traditional investor and you have the risk-on investor, which is really tied in to what's happening in the crypto markets. Doesn't surprise me. James Seyfert, you can kind of hit on this, looks pretty bad right now. Bitcoin inflows were down, but ETHs were up. So Ethereum, on the other hand, were slightly positive so far. So likely to be a positive day with ETH inflows, which it was. Other things to keep an eye on right here. Did you know that ETH staking nears an all-time $33 million in ETH staked, 27.7% of supply. While all this is happening, those rewards just keep coming in. And I think this is the case with Solana, it's the case with ETH. and many in crypto that get a chance to see those kind of things that most traditional investors do not. This is the thing that I think cracks the dome and makes people a little bit nervous in traditional finance. Other things Bitcoin signal last buying opportunity. This is the one that I think everybody's concerned with right now, and that is, was this my last chance at a dip? Maybe there's Bitcoin or Solana at 115, which, Solana now up 30% on what, 24? So I think a lot of this plays into overthinking this. We talked about this yesterday, some things that we were buying, Solana and ETH right there. But the long-term target, 60K, analysts have pointed out chart patterns suggest it's time to accumulate. And the expert noted that the current Bitcoin chart formations are reminiscent of the 2021 surge following COVID crash. This was something that we saw and have seen before, and it's usually like that one last bear trap before we start to see these really heavy up cycles. A couple of things playing into this. Macro, obviously the rate cut. Also what we'll see in terms of the election, because that will give clarity. It will also give us some alignment as to what's going to happen with the crypto regulation, which I think is a big deal for 2025. This will roll into 2025. And then does it soften as we start to see jobless start to maybe soften out, which I think will happen around November and December. So those are dates that I'm really critical right now in terms of watching. This is what surprised me, is that fear and greed was still at 17. Our fear and greed on our MSI is around 30. I think 29 was this morning, but up a lot from what it has been overall. One thing to be aware of, we're getting ready to drop a portfolio video that's going to just on some projects that could be potentially on the move for August and September. So be on the lookout for that video. And then we have a companion video to that one that most likely will make it out tomorrow morning. So make sure and subscribe to the channel if you're not already in the channel right now, and hit that little bell for these kind of live streams. We always love to get feedback from you guys. Always vote on the poll today as well. We'll try to kind of mention on that. Markets blow up, so the best prep is to have a plan to buy fear and sell euphoria. This is a veteran trader talking about this. I think most of the people that watch our channel, I hope, probably were not rattled by this much. Sure, it's a concern because you're always concerned about how Japan is going to do things on readdressing. You're also concerned about, the political tensions that are happening in the Middle East and the jobless numbers. Still, all of this could play into a factor going forward, but I think there's liquidity starting to reshift into other scenarios that play into some of these financial markets. So big stuff happening for sure. Couple of points I do want to get to. There was a lot on this article that is a good one over from Cointelegraph talking about this, but you guys can take a look at that. We're going to kind of move along here. I want to jump over. Also, Ripple has another update right here, which is announcing their stablecoin, RLUSD. Could be good, big news for XRP in general. We've talked about this. We did a full video on it if you guys want to go check it out. But point being is, could this be, remember Ripple Swell coming in, I think in October here in Miami. That'll be an interesting event because there could be some huge implications, again, right before the elections. So a lot of timing here, getting into some pretty good stuff. A quick look at the charts right here, and I'll jump over to Bitcoin because I think everybody's been seeing this bounce come up. I'm on the daily right here, which is a pretty good look. Not too bad in the overall. Money flow coming back in a little bit on the daily. Right now sentiment is holding up. This is our MSI 2.0 indicator. Looks like we may start to print a little bit of an uptrend here on volume, though, is still a little bit low. So this may go sideways for a bit. If you take a look at Solana, this is one. If I go to the 4 hour, this is where it really shows up right here on Solana. Solana's starting to move and also printing some positive movement on sentiment. The overall average above what I would consider as a key indicator, and also volume sentiment. Also money flow starting to eke back in. So we might see a move here on Solana. Let's go over to the poll real quick. Take a look at what everybody's saying. What do you guys think? All right, did crypto bottom? Yes, it's over 42%. No, it's a fake out, 30%. So basically 58% of you are in the unsure camp. I like the fact, how many votes were on that? Go back to that. I just want to see the numbers. So 645, not bad. 42%. Those are the crypto faithful. Yeah, most likely that 42% was probably buying Solana. maybe a handful of other tokens out there. A lot of big movement out there. The big numbers in double digit. Render made a nice move here, up 15%, almost 16 on the day. You had a handful of tokens that were in the double digits. Prime was up. What else did we see in the loose stuff? Bonk was up, of course, almost 15. There's a Fin. We just did a big video on this one. Make sure and check that video on the project. So check it all out. All right, if you guys are not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content from us. We do additional videos over there. We have more podcasts, all sorts of good stuff, as well as our community. So all you have to do is click the link down below or catch me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.